Stop being too friendly. There comes a time when you need to realize that your kindness, your friendliness is not always a virtue. Sometimes it's a cage. You smile too much, say yes too often, laugh when something isn't funny, compliment people who don't even deserve your attention. And you know what happens? They stop taking you seriously. Because when you're too friendly, people assume you need them. You need their approval, you need their permission. And that makes you weak in their eyes even if your heart is strong. Being friendly is great, but being too friendly, that's dangerous. Because it means you tolerate disrespect. It means you shrink yourself to fit into places you've outgrown. It means you stay silent when you should speak up. You weren't born to be a doormat. You weren't born to constantly adjust your volume to make others comfortable. Some people won't like your boundaries, let them leave. Some people will be shocked when you say no, let them be. Some people will call you arrogant, selfish or rude when you stop overgiving. But deep down, they know the truth. They were never entitled to your energy in the first place. Real power begins when you stop chasing validation, when you stop explaining yourself to people who already made up their minds, when you stop trying to be liked and start being respected. So stop being too friendly, be honest, be direct, be kind but not at the expense of your soul. You don't need to be everyone's favorite. You need to be yourself, apologetically, fearlessly and fully. Most people don't realize that being too friendly isn't always about kindness, it's often rooted in fear. A fear of rejection, a fear of not being liked, a deep unspoken fear that if they don't constantly smile, agree or please others, they'll be excluded or left behind. So they overcompensate. They say yes when they want to say no. They laugh at jokes that aren't funny. They offer help before it's even asked for, not because they genuinely want to, but because they're afraid of what will happen if they don't. This kind of behavior isn't always obvious. It hides behind politeness, behind fake smiles, behind phrases like, no worries or it's okay, I understand, when it's absolutely not okay. And over time, it chips away at your authenticity, you start becoming someone else, someone you think the world wants, instead of who you really are. You bury your opinions, your emotions, your limits. You become addicted to approval and you start trading your peace of mind for temporary acceptance. You see, when you're too friendly, people begin to assume you have no boundaries. They believe you'll always be available, always agreeable, always smiling, no matter what. And eventually, they stop seeing your humanity. They treat you like a tool, not a person. They don't ask how you're feeling, they don't consider your schedule, they don't appreciate your effort. Because you train them without even realizing it that you'll bend and stretch endlessly just to keep them comfortable. It's a dangerous cycle. Because the more you please others, the more you disconnect from yourself. And here's the painful truth, people-pleasing is not kindness, it's self-abandonment. And that always comes at a cost. You can't be everything to everyone and still hold on to your dignity. You can't constantly suppress your truth and expect to feel whole. Something always breaks hand. Most of the time, it's your spirit. Somewhere along the way you learned that being liked was the highest form of safety. That if people liked you, they wouldn't hurt you. That if you were easy to be around, you wouldn't be alone. But that's a lie. The truth is, the more you try to be liked by everyone, the more you lose the people who are meant to like the real you. And the more you exhaust yourself trying to fit in, the more out of place you'll feel in your own skin. You have to understand, your value does not come from how many people smile when you walk into a room, it comes from how fully you can walk in without shrinking. Your worth is not tied to your friendliness. It's tied to your courage to speak your mind, to walk away from disrespect, to take up space without apology. The irony is, when you stop trying so hard to be liked, you actually start attracting the right people. people who respect your honesty, people who admire your clarity, people who don't want you to water yourself down just to make them feel tall. You don't need 100 fake connections. You need a few real ones built on truth, not performance. So before you try to be everyone's friend, ask yourself, why am I doing this? Is it because I want to or because I'm afraid not to? The answer to that question will reveal a lot. Because the moment you realize you've been performing just to belong, that's the moment you get to stop. That's the moment you take your power back. When you're too friendly, you become predictable. People know exactly what you're going to say, how you're going to react, and that you'll rarely push back or challenge anything. That predictability might seem safe and socially acceptable, but in reality, it strips you of the very thing that gives you power in relationships and in life: mystery, depth and presence. People don't value what they can always count on to say yes. They don't respect what's always accessible, always agreeable and always accommodating. They value what challenges them, surprises them and makes them think. Being too friendly makes you easy to overlook and even easier to manipulate. When you give off the energy that you want to please everyone, people immediately sense it. They know they can use guilt, subtle pressure or even flattery to get what they want from you. They know you won't say no, not because you can't, but because you're afraid to. And that's when manipulation begins. It may not be blatant. It might be masked in politeness, wrapped in casual requests or disguised as small favors. But make no mistake, people will test your limits, not always out of malice, but out of habit. If you never show that you have limits, they will keep pushing until you're exhausted, used up and resentful. You may think being friendly will earn you appreciation, but more often than not, it earns you expectations. The more you do for others, the more they expect from you. The moment you stop, they question you. Why are you acting different? Are you okay? We used to be so helpful. Not because they're concerned about your well-being, but because they're uncomfortable losing the version of you that existed solely for their benefit. You'll start to see that what you thought was friendship was really convenience. What you thought was mutual respect was just one-sided compliance. That hurts, but it's necessary to wake up. What people remember, what truly leaves an impact, is not how often you smiled or how many favors you did. It's how you made them feel. Did your presence command respect or did it shrink under pressure? Did you hold your ground or did you always back down? Being too friendly is like blending into the background. You're nice, sure, but you're also forgettable. Not because you lack value, but because you never revealed your true self. You stayed on the surface where it's safe but shallow. You never let your real opinions, your real energy, your real strength show. And that's what people remember, authenticity, not politeness. There's a reason the most respected people in any room aren't usually the friendliest. They're not rude or hostile, but they carry themselves with a kind of calm authority. They don't feel the need to entertain everyone, laugh at every joke, or go out of their way to be liked. They know their value and they don't have to broadcast it. They speak when it matters. They move with intention. They have presence, not because they say more, but because what they do say carries weight, that's the difference. That's what being too friendly robs you of. Presence. Friendliness in moderation is a powerful social tool, but when it becomes your entire personality, it becomes your prison. People won't see you as a leader. They won't come to you for wisdom or strength. They'll come to you to make things easier for themselves. And you'll wonder why you feel so drained, why you're constantly fixing others' problems but no one shows up when you need help. It's because you trained them to see you as a support system, not a human being. You taught them that your time, your energy and your boundaries are always negotiable. The truth is, people value what they earn. When you give too much too quickly, your time, your trust, your emotional labor, you don't give them a chance to appreciate it. It becomes routine, expected, almost invisible. But when you're selective with your energy, when you hold back a bit and observe before diving in, people lean in. They wonder what you're thinking. They're curious about who you really are. That curiosity builds intrigue, and that intrigue builds respect. Mystery isn't manipulation, it's protection. It's the wisdom to know that not everyone deserves full access to you right away. It's the discipline to let people reveal their intentions before you invest your time or energy. When you stop being overly friendly, you start drawing the right kind of people into your life, those who value you, not just what you can give. You begin to build relationships based on mutual respect, not silent performance. And yes, some people will drift away when you stop being so available, so agreeable, so endlessly nice. Let them. Their departure is not your loss, it's your liberation. The ones who remain, the ones who see your strength and still choose to stay, are the ones who matter. Those are the people who will appreciate not just your friendliness, but your fullness, your complexity, your boundaries, your honesty. So don't confuse being liked with being valued. Don't confuse being agreeable with being respected. And never confuse being friendly with being remembered. If you want to leave an impact, if you want to be taken seriously, if you want to attract real respect, you have to stop being the person who always smiles, always agrees, and always says yes. Start being the person who chooses their words, protects their time, and carries a presence that speaks louder than politeness ever could. There's a common belief that if you're just nice enough, friendly enough, agreeable enough, people will like you, respect you, and things will somehow fall into place. But the hard truth is, the people who grow, the ones who gain real power and influence, are not the ones who are overly friendly. They are the ones who set unapologetic boundaries. They are not afraid to disappoint others if it means staying true to themselves. They don't walk into every room trying to be the most likable person. They walk in knowing who they are, what they stand for, and what they will not tolerate. When you set boundaries, you communicate something powerful, that you value your time, your energy, and your self-respect. Telling the world, this is where I end and you begin. It's not about arrogance, it's not about shutting people out. It's about protecting your space so that you can grow. Because without boundaries, your life becomes a playground for other people's priorities. Your calendar fills with tasks that aren't yours. Your energy gets spent solving problems you didn't create. And worst of all, you begin to lose sight of what you truly want, because you've been so busy trying to be what everyone else needs. The people who make the biggest impact in life are not the ones who try to please everyone. They are the ones who know what they're willing to compromise on and what they're not. They know how to say a no, with clarity, without guilt and without explanation. They've learned that every yes to something meaningless is a no to something that could have helped them evolve. Growth requires space, it requires focus, it requires cutting out the noise. And being overly friendly floods your life with noise, constant small talk, unnecessary favors, endless emotional labor that leaves you drained and distracted. There's a certain weight that comes with presence. When someone with strong boundaries enters a room, they don't have to say much to be noticed. They don't need to over-smile or overshare. Their energy is grounded, their eyes are clear, their voice doesn't rush to fill silence because they're comfortable in it. That's the kind of presence people remember, not the person who's running around trying to please everyone, but the one who stands tall in their truth even if it makes others uncomfortable. Power is not about dominance, it's about alignment. It's about alignment. When your words match your values, when your actions reflect your priorities, and when your life is built around what truly matters to you, people sense it. You become magnetic, not because you're loud, but because you're authentic, and authenticity is rare. In a world full of people wearing masks, the person who's real, even if it's uncomfortable, even if it means saying no, stands out. And standing out in a world that wants you to fit in is powerful. Too many people think being kind means never disappointing anyone. But growth requires you to disappoint people. You will outgrow relationships, you will walk away from jobs, habits and environments that no longer serve you. Some people won't understand your decisions, they'll take it personally. They'll say, you've changed, and you have. You've stopped living for other people's comfort. You've stopped shrinking yourself to fit into spaces that don't deserve you. Unapologetic boundaries are not about being rude or aggressive. They are about choosing yourself. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You start attracting people who also respect themselves. People who don't expect you to be available 24/7. People who admire your strength instead of trying to take advantage of your softness. You stop surrounding yourself with takers and start aligning with people who understand balance, who reciprocate effort, who communicate with clarity. But there's a maturity that comes with owning your decisions. You stop needing to justify your boundaries. You don't feel guilty for protecting your peace. You don't lose sleep over someone else's disappointment. That shift from needing to be liked to needing to be whole is the foundation of lasting self-worth. When you stop living for validation, you start living with intention. You don't just go with the flow, you choose your path. You don't chase opportunities, you build them. You don't follow people, you lead yourself. Letting your presence carry weight doesn't mean being emotionless or cold. It means being so grounded in who you are that people feel your energy before you speak. They respect your time without being told. They think twice before taking advantage. And that respect isn't given because you demand it with words. It's earned because you live it through action. When people see that you value yourself, they learn to value you too. You have to be willing to walk alone at times. You have to be okay with silence, with solitude, with not being liked by everyone. Because the moment you stop needing everyone's approval is the moment you start becoming unstoppable. You begin to live on your terms. And more than anything, you gain freedom. The freedom to show up fully, to speak honestly, and to move through life without the chains of people-pleasing. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They don't block people out, they protect your energy from being wasted. They make sure that what comes into your life aligns with who you are. That's not selfish, it's strategic. It's what allows you to keep your focus, your peace and your progress. And in a world where everyone is trying to pull your attention in 100 directions, that kind of power is priceless. Let's face it, being too friendly may have helped you survive, but it will never help you thrive. You think you're doing the right thing by keeping everyone happy. You think that if you keep giving, keep smiling, keep agreeing, you'll finally be accepted, finally be seen, finally be enough. But deep down, you know better. You know what it feels like to walk away from a conversation and feel hollow inside because you said everything they wanted to hear, but nothing you actually felt. You know what it's like to stay quiet in a room full of noise because you didn't want to stir the waters, even though the truth was bubbling in your chest. You know what it's like to be surrounded by people and yet feel completely alone because none of them know the real you. And if that's the life you're settling for, let me ask you this, when is it going to be your turn? When is it going to be your turn to say no and not feel guilty? Your turn to choose yourself and not apologize for it? Your turn to walk into a room, not looking for approval but owning it with your presence, your energy, your truth. Let me tell you something no one else is saying. You are not born to be agreeable. You were born to be powerful, you were not born to fade into the background. You were not born to fade into the background. You were born to leave a mark. But here's the truth about power, it demands clarity, it demands boldness, it demands boundaries. You don't become powerful by being everything for everyone. You become powerful the moment you decide that you will no longer betray yourself just to make other people comfortable. The moment you say, I'm done shrinking to fit into spaces that were never meant for me. I'm done apologizing for having standards, for having opinions, for having a backbone. I'm done watering myself down so I can be digestible to people who will never respect me anyway. You know what happens when you stop being too friendly? You stop being a character in someone else's story and you start being the author of your own. People might not like it at first. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're not as sweet as you used to be. Let them talk, because the truth is you're not changing, you're returning to strength, returning to that powerful, unshakable version of you that's been buried under years of people pleasing and fake smiles. And you know what? That version of you doesn't chase attention. You don't need to justify your boundaries, you don't need to justify your boundaries. You don't need to explain your standards. You don't need to shrink so others can feel tall. You need to stand. Stand in your truth. Stand in your values, stand in your power. Even if your voice shakes, even if your knees tremble, even if you're standing alone. Because something magical happens when you stop being overly friendly and start being real. You stop attracting users and start attracting warriors. You stop attracting takers and start attracting builders. You stop being surrounded by noise and start finding your tribe. The kind of people who don't get offended by your boundaries, the kind who respect your time, the kind who want the real you, not the performance version of you. But you'll never find those people, never build that life if you keep handing your power away for free. So here's your wake-up call, you're allowed to be kind and assertive. You're allowed to be generous and guarded. You're allowed to be humble and fierce. This isn't about becoming cold or distant, it's about becoming clear. Clear on who you are, clear on what you want, clear on what you will no longer tolerate. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. Growth always is. You'll lose some people, you'll face some criticism. But hear me when I say this, losing fake friends is not a loss, it's a revelation. Disappointing people who never valued you is not failure, it's freedom, so walk tall. Speak up, say no without explaining, say yes without guilt. Say nothing when silence says more than words ever could. Because the world doesn't need more fake smiles. The world needs people who are real, people who are real, people who are brave, people who are honest, even when it's uncomfortable. And you have that in you. You have a fire inside you that's been burning beneath layers of forced politeness and quiet tolerance. It's time to let that fire out. Let it burn away the fear. Let it burn away the guilt. Let it burn away the need to be liked. Because you weren't born to be liked by everyone. You were born to lead yourself. You were born to show others what it looks like to be grounded, authentic, untouchable. Not because you're perfect, but because you're done pretending. So here's the final question I'll leave you with. Are you ready to stop being everyone's comfort zone and start being your own revolution? Because if you are, then walk out of this moment with your head high, your voice strong and your boundaries unshakable. This world doesn't need more friendly faces, it needs more fearless souls. And your time to rise, it's right now.